The search is on! Hey there, it's Theo from Geeky Gamer Guy. This video will be previewing Nocturne from Flatout Games. The sun has set. Better get your best spells ready. Nocturne is a competitive bidding and spatial puzzle game for 1 to 4 players. Players are magical fox mystics. Over the course of 2 rounds, each player will cast spell tokens in the forest, in hopes of securing the best magical items for the collection, as well as to be used towards concoctions and goals. To set up, give each player one of the 4 character cards with the A side face up. Each character shows their name, a little adorable flavor about them, and a symbol of an item they can use for concoctions. I'll talk more about that in a bit. They also get a set of spell tokens matching their character's color. Based on player count, remove some spell tokens to the box according to this chart. I'll be setting up for a 2-player game, so I'm going to need all of them. Place the spell tokens in ascending order face up next to the character card. Shuffle and give each player a starting concoction, returning the rest to the box, being sure to keep it hidden from the other players. No peeking! Then shuffle the Concoction, Twilight Goal, and Moonlight Goal decks, and place them face down within reach of all players. Draw 3 cards from the Twilight Goal deck face up in a row to be used during the first round, obviously called the Twilight Round. So obvious. Place the shadow spell tokens nearby to be used during the Moonlight Round. Now thoroughly shuffle the item tiles face down and arrange a number of them in a grid according to this chart, being sure to give some room between the tiles. This makes up the forest. Leave the remaining tiles face down in a stack nearby. Place the forest sprite board below the grid and draw a number of tiles based on player count face up onto the board. With that, we're ready to get started. Let the competition begin! A game of Nocturne is played in a single night over 2 rounds, Twilight and Moonlight. A round consists of a series of spellcasting phases that continues around the table until all tiles in the forest have been won, followed by an end-of-round phase. Each spellcasting phase ends as soon as the tile has been collected. Then the winner of that tile starts a new spellcasting phase immediately afterwards. In the spellcasting phase, the starting player of each round begins by placing their lowest value spell token on any tile in the forest. This is their starting spell. Note: placing their lowest spell token only applies during the first cast of the round. Afterwards, the player that wins the tile may place any value spell token after the first spellcasting phase. Once the start player places their spell token, the next player in clockwise order chooses to cast a spell or pass. To cast a spell, a player chooses a tile that is orthogonally adjacent to the current spell and places one of their remaining spell tokens on it. The spell token must have a higher value than the current highest one. If the player is unable to cast a spell higher than the current spell, they must pass. Alright, I'm out. Leaving all spell tokens in play until a tile is won. Each player also starts the game with a high bid token marked with a star. This special token is always the highest bid and allows the player to immediately win the current spellcasting phase. Once all other players have passed, the player who casts the spell with the highest value takes the item tile that the highest value spell token is on. Most tiles contribute to scoring at the end of the game by giving symbols to be used for concoctions. At the start of the game and throughout play, a player may acquire a concoction. These cards show symbols that a player will need to brew them. Like I said earlier, each player starts with a symbol on their character card that they can use. Most tiles also score based on the amount of those tiles a player has in their tableau, like Firebird feathers that score a number of points based on how many feathers that player has in their tableau. But there are a few tiles with different effects, like mirror stones that copy an item in that player's tableau at the end of the game, or ancient rune stones that allow a player to draw 3 cards from the concoction deck, choosing 1 card to keep and discarding the other 2. After collecting the tile, the winner flips over their spell token and places it face down in the space left behind by the tile. It becomes a control point that can be used to fulfill goals. Control points remain until the end of the round. All players retrieve their unsuccessful spell tokens and choose to either place all of them back in their play area or send one of them to the forest sprite board. If they do, place it based on the chosen spell token's value. If the spell token is a lower value than any other ones on the forest sprite board, place that token in the first empty right slot. If the spell token is higher than any spell tokens on the board, all the spell tokens are shifted to the right and it is placed in the highest left slot. If the spell token is the same value as another spell token, it is placed in the slot below those spell tokens with the same value, shifting the others to make room. If this spell token is between the values of other spell tokens already on the board, it is placed in between those spells. If adding a spell token to the forest sprite board would cause the lowest token on it to be pushed to a slot beyond what's marked for player count, it is immediately returned to that player and placed in their play area. Note: the player who won the tile may not place a spell token on the forest sprite board. They can only retrieve their unsuccessful spell tokens back to their play area. Now, if a spell token would prevent another player from casting a higher spell, they immediately win the tile. This could happen by either there aren't any open orthogonally adjacent spaces to place a new spell, or no player can outbid the value higher than the current highest bid. The player that wins the tile becomes the new starting player for the next spellcasting phase, but like I said earlier, they can now use any spell token that they have for the rest of the round. However, they must cast their starting spell orthogonally adjacent to the tile that they just won. Whenever a tile is won, check to see if it satisfies any conditions on the Twilight Goals in play. These goals usually have to do with control point configurations in the forest. Once a condition is met, the player collects the goal and places it in their play area. Each are worth 3 points at the end of the game. Now, if a player wins a tile in a position that allows them to cast their next spell that has no orthogonally adjacent place for others to cast, this is called corner casting. This guarantees that they win the tile uncontested. They take the tile as usual, but the next player in turn order casts the new starting spell on any tile in the forest. Once all tiles in the forest have been won, the Twilight Round ends. Resolve the forest sprite board. Starting with the highest spell token on the board and proceeding to the lowest, players take turns drafting tiles from the board, flipping over that spell token and then takes a tile of their choice, adding it to their tableau. After that, award shadow spell tokens. Each player that has leftover spell tokens at the end of the round is awarded a shadow spell token based on their leftover spell tokens. Starting with the player with the highest spell tokens and proceeding to the lowest, each drafts one spell token, highest to lowest, from the supply. Then all players retrieve their spell tokens from the forest grid and add them back into their play area. For each spell token that a player was awarded, they must discard the lowest spell tokens. This ensures all players have the same number of tokens. Next, draw 3 Moonlight Gold cards in a row below the deck within reach of all players. Then refill item tiles to form a new forest and a forest sprite board just like in setup. Play then moves on to the Moonlight Round, starting with the player who won the last tile from the forest sprite board. This plays almost exactly the same as the Twilight Round, except the Moonlight Goals are calculated at the end of the game for all players. Also, shadow spell tokens can be used in place of a player's spell token to cast in the forest to win tiles. But since they cannot be tied back to the player who cast them, they can never be sent to the forest sprite board. Once the Moonlight Round ends, resolve the forest sprite board just like in the previous round. Assign mirror stones to copy a tile in that player's tableau. Then move on to scoring using the provided score sheet. First, players sum up all the points on their skull tiles. Then players score a number of points based on how many Firebird Feather tiles they have. Then score a number of points based on mushroom sets. Then players score points based on the number of points printed on the herb tiles for sets of 3, 4, or 5 unique herbs, creating multiple sets when needed. Then players score a number of points based on their rank among all players for mysterious eggs. 4 points per mysterious egg for the player who has the most of them, 3 points for the second most, 2 points for the third, and 1 point for the fourth. Then players lose 1 point for each cursed treasure chest they have in their tableau. Then players score points based on the concoctions that they were able to brew with the symbols from their item tiles and character card. Tiles with 2 symbols can be used to complete 2 different concoctions, but each symbol may only be used once. Most concoction cards have 2 tiers of completion. Players score the points adjacent to the highest tier that they complete. Next, score 3 points for every Twilight Goal the player has. After that, players score points based on how well they achieve all 3 Moonlight Goals. Lastly, players score 2 points per leftover spell token that they did not use in the Moonlight Round. The player with the most points wins. Some features here include a satisfying bidding and set collection game that's easy to understand, but has tons of tough decisions. So tough. The mechanic of casting spell tokens for item tiles in the forest is a lot more interactive than previous Flatout game titles. So players that were missing a way to mess with their opponents directly certainly has that in this game. It's certainly there. It's totally okay if not though, because there are ways to mitigate that. First, the high bid token that each player gets makes a tile an instant win for that player. It's really helpful when timed just right. Also, allowing players that did not win a tile to place an unsuccessful token on the forest sprite board really balances everything out, making it where all players will have a sprawling tableau in front of them at the end of the game. And that tableau is gorgeous. Best Sobel has really done an amazing job with the art in this one. I mean, check out those fox mystics. They're all just so cute. The tiles really immerse you in their world, and I want to live there. Also, just like all Flatout games, there are multiple modes to play with. I share the standard set of the game, where players use the side A of their character cards, but there's an advanced side B that gives each player a unique special action that they can use once per game, flipping the card after using it. If a player doesn't use an ability, it's worth 2 points during scoring. The solo mode will feature a simple to run AI opponent that will be driven by cards that challenge a player's skill. Family mode has simplified rules, removing some aspects of the game to make it more enjoyable for games with younger and/or less experienced players, making Nocturne even more accessible for many players to enjoy. This game is definitely for players that like a puzzly bidding and set collection game where all players are competing directly against one another. Players have to be prepared that they might not get the tile that they were wanting and have to switch gears to make a new strategy work for them. So if a bidding, set collection, spatial puzzle game dripping in a breathtakingly beautiful theme sounds like your jam, then you should definitely go check this one out. I put a link in the description below for you to check out further. That's it! Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to help out the channel, tapping the like button really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to not miss out on future videos. Until next time, stay geeky, keep gaming! Well, that's it for me. Alright, I'm out.